Hello and welcome to Serious Social. So the sun is starting to shine and the Met Office is telling us that this is going to be a real sizzling hot summer. So guess what? In the UK, we're going to get the barbecue out. So I have worked with Elaine, who is our audience strategy and planning director, to look at how people talk about barbecues. And it's quite interesting because in searching how the conversations take place, we've uncovered that there is a huge opportunity for brands in this space. Not only because there is this a chance to talk about how people shop and how we make a brand memorable between social and store, but also because conversations are increasing on social media. In fact, they've increased year on year 287%. So, Elaine, we have worked hard on this report, haven't we?
Certainly have, yeah.
And do you think, so one of the things is not only has the conversation grown, but we've got, is it all about the barbecue moment?
It's not quite an in-the-moment conversation. What the data and analysis showed us that we talk barbecues from as early as May, from the bank holiday, right through until September. We also talk about barbecues throughout the week, so not particularly just zoning in on weekends. It's chatter that's really quite constant. We found that increased conversations on Twitter, but Instagram seems to be the sort of the big new kid in the barbecue block, so to speak. Conversations up 342%
Wow.
year on year, which proves that the foodies are really taking to the barbecue conversations, as you would expect. The interesting thing is as well, obviously, from a food point of view, chicken and burgers really top the barbecue menu. Yeah. But my favourite, the squeaky cheese halloumi, has made a big entrance for the non-meat category. So although cheddar is the number one UK cheese, which I'm also a fan of, it really is about halloumi as well.
You see, I think that's really interesting because everybody knows in the last 18 months, everything is about veganism, which is great, but it's absolutely pervaded its way into the barbecue conversations on social media. The conversations have grown 267% year on year. So that wave, that kind of trend is definitely moving in to the barbecue conversation, and we are being a little bit more, even if we're not vegan, a bit more flexitarian about our diets when it comes to grilling.
Yeah.
And I think the other really interesting thing is that most barbecue conversations that we uncovered were pretty much 50-50 gender. So 50% men, 50% women, until it came to vegan, in which case it's the girls.
Absolutely.
It's the girls' role. 2/3 of women talk about vegan and veganism. So I think that's a really interesting aspect. So for brands wanting to get in this space, am I right in thinking then it's all about the food? Get your camera ready and foodie pictures and all that sort of stuff?
Certainly food's a big part of it, as you'd expect, but what we really uncovered was the human side to the barbecue, and it really is about family and friends and building in that emotional trigger. You know, after all, you don't really barbecue alone, it becomes a social event, so you all gather around the barbecue. And yes, food is a big part of the conversation, but the absolute sort of nub of it all is really the people and who you're spending time with around the barbecue. What we also saw as well was that we're not just barbecuing in our gardens anymore. We're actually seeing conversations that are really showing we're barbecuing at work for work events, and conversations around the work barbecue have gone up by 275% year on year, but also parties. So we're now, if you're lucky enough to have a birthday in the summer or a celebration in the summer, barbecues are a big part of that, with conversations up a whopping 300+% year on year. So it's not just about the food, it's about the emotional kind of coming together, spending time together, and really the people is really at the centre of that, and that is where the emotional engagement is going to come in. So storytelling around the barbecue shouldn't just focus on the product shots and the shots of the meat, as lovely as they are. It's absolutely about the people.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that's the motivation. The motivation
Absolutely.
is not just the food, the motivation is gathering, isn't it? And what's really interesting is that in all of that, the brands are having virtually no presence at all. And that was the bit that I was quite astonished at. And the reason I think, when we were talking about it, the bit that made this the most interesting is that You would think the barbecue is that social store memory.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about shop omissions is, you know, you may look and surf and enjoy a conversation about barbecues from a brand on social, but by the time you get into store, that may have been forgotten, and then you're deluged with whatever's going on in store. However, barbecues are like a mission in their own right, aren't they? You go knowing it's the point you will buy something new. It's the point where you will try out a new product, or that you will look at a favourite brand in a different way, or consider different foods in a different way. Yet the brands themselves are not there. And I think that for me was an overarching surprise, because this is not just an opportunity to be part of the barbecue conversation, which is certainly growing on trend, the vegan barbecue conversation. There's lots of opportunities, but the real opportunity is in grabbing consumers to build brand loyalty at a point where beyond the barbecue they will continue to revisit. It becomes easy then to talk about your marinades and sauces further down and outside of the barbecue season, because somebody has tried your brand. Yet there are very few brands, mostly fiddling around the edges with a few competitions. And even more surprising is the typical barbecue brands and the equipment, people like Weber and that green egg thing, yes, you know, and all the Smoky Joes and all that sort of stuff. They're not really very present in the conversation either. And it's almost like a whole chat, growing chat, begging for a brand to come and be part of it. And there isn't anyone.
No, there isn't at all. It was a real surprise, actually, because you would think there would be a few notable kind of brands popping up and being part of the conversation, and there just isn't. And kind of working with you, looking through all the data, it's obvious that the brands aren't really reflecting the conversations that are being had, and they're kind of missing a trick, really. You know, what we've seen and what we've spoken about is it's adding the emotion, it's tapping into what people are talking about. So whether it's a trend like veganism or whether it's the party moment, it's really coming into those conversations and reflecting what the audience are actually talking about, rather than just pushing through the product shots over and over again. Yeah. And it's also being, you know, reflective of the time. So yes, we might barbecue at weekends, but we're planning a barbecue during the week when we're keeping an eye on the weather. So
blimey, we keep talking, don't we? I noticed that. It just doesn't change at all during the week.
No.
It's really interesting. We keep talking. I mean, that's a great summary. That for me says that between now, and if you're not doing it now, you're wasting your time. Come on. Yeah. All the way through to the end of September, this is the barbecue chat, and that's the springboard for most brands to then continue the conversation into October and November and through to Christmas. So it doesn't have to be just about barbecue, because there's so many adjacency brands like drink and even fashion that fit around that whole moment of being together with your family.
Yes, completely agree.
So thank you very much for joining us. Do follow us if you like our Serious Socials on #SeriousSocial. And if you'd like the report, which is you can download for free, go to our resources site at www.immediatefuture.co.uk. Thank you for joining us.